The first tear fell from King Oba's eye the moment he realized the price of his throne was his daughter's life. Once, in the sun-drenched nation of Tanzania, in the ancient lands of the Ujima territory, ruled a leader of unparalleled wisdom and grace, King Oba. He governed with a heart open to his people, alongside his cherished wife, Queen Zawadi, meaning gift. Despite the devotion he held for his subjects, a single shadow stretched across his reign. His only heir, a daughter named Princess Subaira, meaning patience, was the reason for both his greatest joy and his deepest fear. Subaira had been a miracle, born only after Queen Zawadi endured 8 barren years due to a rare illness. Now, with his only child finally here, King Oba was tormented by the thought that she might not live long amidst the encroaching dangers facing their homeland. The Ujima territory, once a beacon of prosperity and peace, had, in recent seasons, become a lightning rod for relentless assaults from hostile neighboring tribes and shadowy, dark entities. These raids had begun around the time Princess Subaira was born. Initially, King Oba and his royal guard managed to beat back the brutal attacks. Yet, the raiders were persistent, and with every clash, his loyal warriors fell, and the territory's defenses crumbled. Not only that, but each attack drained the kingdom's reserves, as the marauders would seize vast quantities of grain and livestock as their plunder. It was only by sheer divine intervention that King Oba had survived the onslaughts himself. The ancient spirits would reveal the timing of the next raid to him in his dreams, allowing him to hide his wife and daughter in a concealed royal bunker before the darkness descended. While he sought safety, the rest of the Ujima territory was ravaged. Women were assaulted, many citizens were taken as slaves, and innocents were brutally massacred. As a result, his own people slowly turned their hearts against him, labeling him a coward and a feckless king. There were days when his royal chariot passed through the market square, only to be met by the fury of villagers who hurled rocks at his carriage. Women who had lost their children screamed for him to yield his authority, declaring that he had utterly failed at the king's most vital duty, protecting his people. When King Oba heard these desperate cries, a wave of gut-wrenching despair washed over him, for he knew every accusation was true. But what alternative did he have? He had to find a way, at any cost, to secure his kingdom, his family, and his legacy. The pressure from the citizens was a daily siege. Protests were a constant presence outside the royal compound, demanding his immediate abdication. It felt as if King Oba was suffocating under the immense weight of their expectation. The only remaining light in the king's life was his daughter, Subaira, and he began to fear that soon he might have to protect her not from the external enemies, but from the internal rage of his own subjects. Day by day, the burden of saving his people crushed his spirit. He often sought refuge patrolling the moonlit palace gardens, wallowing in self-pity and contemplating how he had failed the great legacy of his father, King Msiba II. One haunting night, as he paced the gardens, lost in dark meditation, a sinister presence detached itself from the deep shadows behind him. It was an entity of pure malice, a demon whose eyes blazed like molten embers, whose skin was scarred and hideous, and whose voice resonated with promises of ruin. "King Oba," the demon rasped, "I can grant you the security and peace you crave for your domain. No foe will ever dare assault you again, and your people shall know tranquility." King Oba instantly stumbled back, his body shaking with unadulterated terror. What was this? Who spoke? His mind fought against the reality of what his ears had just heard. He turned, and there it was, a towering, imposing fiend, cloaked in spectral fabric, with a disfigured, horned head and a malformed physique. "Demon!" King Oba roared. "Ha ha!" the entity cackled, a chilling sound that scraped against the silence of the night. It replied in a voice dripping with mockery. "Indeed, great king. I am a demon. Yet, there is no need to state the obvious." King Oba's voice was barely a whisper, revealing the fear in his wide eyes. "Who are you? Have you come to fulfill the villagers' wishes and slay me?" The demon threw its head back in a chilling laugh. "Not today, King Oba. Not today, at least." It then placed a clawed hand over its chest. "My name is Mchoi, the Dreadful, Prince Mchoi, son of Bor, king of the spirits of the Great Rift. And believe it or not, great king, I stand before you bearing salvation. What good could ever come from your kind? King Oba asked, finding a sliver of courage now that his immediate life seemed spared. A valid point, the demon replied with feigned sorrow, placing its hand on its chest again. But you forget, mighty king, that trouble only arises when your kind fails to uphold their pledge. We both know that you and your valiant forces desperately require my assistance. And here I am to offer you that rescue. Choi concluded with a mocking bow. The sarcasm and sheer disrespect in its voice ignited a spark of rage in King Oba. False, he declared, bolstered by newfound defiance. The last thing my people need is help from your ilk. Begone from my sight, spawn of evil. No need for such dramatic fervor, my dear king, Choi pressed. What I offer is an army that will match and crush any enemy that dares to face you in battle. An army guaranteed to win every single encounter. Ha! And what value is an army of non-men? King Oba retorted, his demeanor shifting to one of doubt. You couldn't even appear to me in the light of day, only here, at night, when we are utterly alone. I'm certain this army is as cowardly as you are, and certainly not as strong as you claim. Choi responded with a cool yet commanding tone. My king, do not mistake my discretion for weakness. I chose the night and privacy because I assumed you would prefer this discussion to remain between us. As for the strength of the demonic army I boast of, well, seeing is believing. If you would kindly look, my king. Choi placed a hand on King Oba's shoulder and guided him to face the palace courtyard. Then, the demon slowly swept his arm across the vista, and the scene before them was utterly transformed. King Oba now beheld a terrifying army, perfectly arrayed for war, stretching as far as his eye could see. With this host, great king, you will not only shield your kingdom and your people, but you will become invincible forever, powerful enough to wreak vengeance on every soul who has brought ruin to your territory. Choi the Dreadful whispered into King Oba's ear. The king stared at the spectacle, a dangerous hunger glinting in his eyes. He knew Choi spoke the truth. With this army, he would be unstoppable. He could launch a devastating counterattack and eliminate all his foes easily. But then, he wrestled back control, closing his eyes against the temptation. And for all this, what is your price in return? He asked Choi, his eyes still tightly shut. For something so trivial, I am practically giving this away, the demon said, pausing to let the weight of the statement settle. Which is? King Oba demanded, opening his eyes. The soul of Princess Subaira, Choi declared. My only daughter. But why? She has only just turned 12. What has she to do with this? King Oba cried, spinning to face the demon. A single life for the countless you will dispatch with this army, Choi replied, walking toward the soldiers to draw the king's attention back to them. A small price to pay for your salvation, wouldn't you agree? He asked, a ghastly smile twisting his lips. I knew it. You demons and your foul demands. I will never yield my daughter's soul to you. Now, vanish, demon. Choi gave a curt nod and began to retreat, speaking in a great, booming voice as he faded. When you require my presence, step out into the deepest shadows and call my name. I shall appear. I doubt your kingdom can survive one more battle. And with that, he was gone. King Oba clutched his chest, breathing heavily, and stumbled back into the palace. My king, is there a problem? One of the few remaining palace servants asked, alarmed by the terror etched on his face. Did you not hear anything in the courtyard just now? He asked. Oh, no, your highness. Did something happen? The servant replied, concerned. Never mind, King Oba sighed, ascending the staircase to the royal chambers. Perhaps it was just my mind playing tricks on me, he thought, pushing open the heavy doors. Queen Zawadi was already asleep, as was Princess Subaira, whom they had moved back into their chamber because the queen was too afraid to let her sleep alone during the constant insecurity. With a deep sigh that spoke of his worries, the king undressed and retired for the night. While sleeping, he received a terrifying revelation from the spirits. His former ally, King Jabari of the neighboring Ashanti domain, was preparing a surprise attack. King Oba jolted awake, sitting up with wide eyes full of dread. His sudden movement woke Queen Zawadi. "Oba, what is it? Did you have another vision?" she asked, sitting up beside him. "No, my love, it is nothing," he replied, forcing a fragile smile to quell her worry. "Are you certain?" she pressed gently, wiping the sleep from her eyes. "Yes, my dearest. Now, go back to sleep," he said, planting a soft kiss on her right cheek. King Oba did not sleep another moment until morning. Even at breakfast, he could not bring himself to eat. He could no longer hide his distress from his wife, who continued to probe. "I am simply worried about the current state of the territory," he finally admitted. "If nothing is done, the legacy of my father and his father before him may soon be extinguished," he replied, offering a half-truth to ease her concerns. "May the spirits forbid that," she replied. She leaned in, lowering her voice so that their daughter, who was seated beside her, could not overhear. "But you, as the king of this territory, must act quickly to address this crisis. You must show your people that they still have a king, or they may begin plotting against you," she warned wisely. King Oba knew she spoke the unvarnished truth. Though she knew nothing of King Jabari's treacherous plan, she was indirectly urging him to take decisive action. King Oba knew he didn't just need to act, he desperately needed a victory. This win was essential not only to prevent an imminent invasion but because he knew his kingdom might never recover if this attack was not repelled. He also needed to prove to Mchai the Dreadful that he did not require a demon's help to triumph. As his wife had said, if he stood by and allowed another defeat, the next war he faced would be against his own people. The betrayal of King Jabari stung him deeply. As princes, they had been inseparable. Although King Oba recalled Jabari exhibiting mischievous, even wicked, tendencies in their youth, he never expected this level of treachery. He stood up at once, kissed his wife, thanking her for her unwavering love and support, then kissed his daughter, who giggled at his touch. He left the dining hall in a rush, leaving the queen bewildered. "Mommy, where is Daddy going in such a hurry?" Princess Subaira asked sweetly. "To sort out some things." "Don't worry about it," her mother replied, caressing her face. How deeply she loved this girl, she thought, smiling at her. Nothing could ever separate them, she swore silently. Meanwhile, King Oba immediately summoned the royal advisors and the military high command to the war room to devise a strategy against the incoming attack. The men were astonished to see the king in full battle attire, actively planning military tactics with them again. This sight filled them with morale and renewed hope that this time, things would change. "Welcome once again to the war room, Your Highness." The commander-in-chief of the forces greeted King Oba with a sharp salute. He, too, was in full military gear, his helmet held under his arm. "It is an honor to be here," King Oba replied. He then turned to address his soldiers. "As you know, the spirits have revealed to me that the Ashanti domain is planning to strike. I have a strategy to secure us victory, but we will require every able-bodied man we can recruit to make it work." "We shall recruit more men then, sire," the commander assured him. "What plan do you have in mind?" "Look here," the king said, pointing to a massive map. He then detailed the plan. The soldiers were thrilled and confident. It was a sound strategy, and the king was actively involved in the preparations. The news spread like wildfire across the Ujima territory, rekindling hope, joy, and belief among the populace. Once again, they had a king who would fight for and shield them. When the royal entourage rode back to the palace, they were met with cheers, not jeers, and King Oba was deeply grateful that he had decided to take action. However, one person was not happy with King Oba, and that was his wife, Queen Zawadi, because of an event that occurred earlier that day. Long after King Oba had departed, she and her daughter took a walk around the royal grounds. She noticed a genuine smile on every face. Not that she wanted them to be sad, but there seemed to be a particular reason spreading this joy. Out of simple curiosity, she wondered what it was. "This is the first time I've seen so many happy people on one of our walks," the princess admitted to her mother. The queen simply smiled at her daughter, but seeing the little girl share her sentiment compelled the queen to ask what was happening. "I will be with you shortly," she said to her daughter, and watched the little girl obey. She then called one of her palace maidens and asked her, "I noticed everyone seems so joyful today. Did something happen?" "Oh, I'm sure you know why, Your Highness. It is your husband, the king," the maiden replied. "Ah." The queen nodded, feeling awkward. The king had told her nothing. "What exactly did he do?" she asked. "He is working with the soldiers on battle preparations for the fight against the Ashanti domain in 3 days' time." "Ah," the queen replied again, nodding. So, her husband had received a revelation last night, she thought. "Anything else, my queen?" the maiden asked gently, feeling slightly uncomfortable revealing this to the queen. Just to be certain, the queen asked the maiden one more question. "How did we discover that the Ashanti domain plans to attack us?" The maiden hesitated, unsure if she should speak. "I am waiting," the queen reminded her gently. Well, the king said he had one of his visions," she whispered. "Ah," the queen nodded. Okay, she repeated, breathing deeply. "You may leave. Good day, my queen." The maiden bowed and quickly retreated. The queen stormed back into the palace and marched straight to the royal chambers, boiling with anger. She knew exactly what she had to do. When King Oba returned to the palace, his daughter ran to meet him. "Father!" she shouted, embracing him. "Mother and I saw everyone so happy on our visit. I think they've forgiven us." "Yes, they have, my princess," he replied, kissing her forehead. "And where is your mother?" he asked. "In the royal chamber," the little girl answered softly. "All right, I'll go see her now," King Oba said and walked in. He reached the royal chambers, delighted and eager to share the news of his people's change of heart, but found his wife angrily packing his belongings into a large chest. "My love, what are you doing?" he asked, confused. "What you instructed me to do," she replied, throwing his royal robes into the box. "Me?" he asked, utterly perplexed. "But I didn't ask you to do anything with my things." "Oh, so you've forgotten?" she asked, gathering more items and dumping them into the chest. King Oba had to move to her and wrap her in his arms before she could empty the entire room of his possessions. "My love, what is the matter? What did I do?" he asked gently. "No, my love, it's nothing," she replied quickly. The statement felt vaguely familiar to King Oba, and he struggled to recall where he had heard it. Then it struck him, it was the exact phrase he had used when she asked if he'd had a nightmare. He instantly understood the cause of the drama and chuckled softly at his wife's flair for the dramatic. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you about the attack," he said. "Who is laughing with you?" she demanded, breaking free and grabbing a pair of his shoes. But he seized her again before she could dump them in the chest. "My love, I apologize. I know I should have told you about that first," he pleaded. Oh, so you know," the queen replied. "You know you have a wife, and yet she is finding out such a sensitive matter from a palace maiden," she said furiously, pulling free and dropping the shoes into the box anyway. But King Oba lunged and pulled her into a tight embrace again before she could grab anything else. "My love, I'm sorry, he apologized, but she cut him short. "You cannot imagine how embarrassed I felt to find out you had a vision from a palace maiden," she confessed. "Let me go," she tried to free herself again, but he held her close, planting soft kisses on her neck, knowing it was her most potent weakness. "I'm sorry, my love," he repeated, imploring. "I promise I won't do it again. But isn't this a bit of an overreaction? You are packing my things," he chuckled. "Where am I supposed to take them?" he asked playfully. "To the same people you decided are more important than your queen." "But did you just say I'm overreacting?" she asked, spinning to face him, one eyebrow arched in challenge. "Of course not, my queen. I would never," he swore. "Good for you," she replied. "Do you forgive me now?" he asked gently, kissing her neck. "Of course not," Queen Zawadi scoffed, pushing him away. "You think it's that simple? Who knows what else you're concealing from me?" King Oba opened his mouth to assure her there was nothing else, But then he remembered the demon, Choi the Dreadful. The queen immediately noted his hesitation. "Spit it out, Oba, or you will be sleeping in that war room tonight," she threatened, pointing at him. He took a deep breath and sat heavily on their bed. "Last night, I was visited by a demon," he confessed. The queen gasped. "Oba, you were visited by a demon, and you are only telling me now? Who am I to you? You are seeing another woman, aren't you? Why don't you share things with me anymore?" she asked, tears welling up. "You don't love me anymore, Oba. You don't," she accused, pointing a finger at him. "Ah, do not speak such things, my queen," King Oba replied, moving quickly toward her. "But it is true," she cried, pushing him away. "Who is she? Tell me now," she insisted. "There is no one, my love. If I didn't tell you, it's because I didn't want you to start worrying about these things. I love you with all my heart, and the only other is our daughter," he said, trying to reassure her. "Well, it certainly doesn't feel like it," the queen replied, stepping away. "I am truly sorry for this, my love, and I promise to never do anything to make you doubt my devotion again," King Oba assured her, kissing her neck from behind. Queen Zawadi blushed uncontrollably but refused to let the king off easily. "Stop trying to bribe me with these kisses," she said, moving away. But the king pulled her back and kissed her again, and she finally allowed him to see her smile as he embraced her from behind. "I come before everyone and everything in your life, even your own shadow. You know that, don't you?" she asked, leaning against him and turning her neck to look into his eyes. "Of course," King Oba assured her, leaning down for a soft kiss. "Now, what did that Choi demon want?" she asked, rolling her eyes. King Oba asked, feigning not to hear her. He wasn't sure that bringing up his conversation with Choi was a good idea right now. After all, he had spent so much time calming her down just because he hadn't told her about his dream. Imagine telling her a demon wanted the soul of their only daughter, the child they had struggled 8 long years to conceive. "My love, I asked you a question," the queen pressed, eagerly. "It doesn't matter," he replied, trying to dissuade her. "Are you going to tell me or not, Oba?" she asked, her tone shifting. The king exhaled resignedly and gave in. "He offered me a magnificent army, as far as my eyes could see, and more powerful than anything I have ever witnessed." "Oh my, that's exactly what we need right now," she murmured. "But what did he want in return?" "Half the kingdom. Some virgin maidens," she joked. "The soul of our only daughter Sabira," King Oba admitted. "What?" The queen spun to face him. "This is why I didn't want to tell you this part," King Oba confessed. "My only daughter is not the one you are going to use for your rituals, Oba," the queen declared, clutching her chest. "Do not forget that she is my daughter too." "I am aware," King Oba replied. "With the way you have been behaving recently, I don't know what to expect, so I'm just reminding you that it took me 8 full years to get my daughter before you start having useless thoughts. For your information, I sent him packing after he made that request. I would die if I lost you or my daughter," he swore. The queen began blushing uncontrollably again, and she allowed him to take her in his arms and kiss her. "No more secrets?" she asked. "No more," he assured her. Then she pulled away from his embrace. "Time for dinner," she said lazily as she walked toward the doors. "Won't you help me put these things away?" he asked. "That is your punishment for keeping secrets from me. Make sure my chamber is in order by the time I return." "Oh, so it's your chamber now?" he asked, chuckling. "If you behave, I'll let you stay the night," she replied and blew him a kiss before leaving. King Oba just shook his head and got to work, putting everything back in its place, after which he went to have dinner with his family and then went to bed. The next day, they were scheduled to practice the tactics they intended to use against the Ashanti domain, and King Oba could barely wait. When the morrow came, the practice proved harder than anyone had anticipated, as it had been a long time since the men had proper military training. King Oba, for one, found the drills utterly exhausting. Everything was difficult, and when they sparred in sword fights, the king lost every single match, even with the queen and princess cheering him on. But despite their lack of skill, the The people were overjoyed that the king was finally involved. On their way back, the royal entourage was cheered by the citizens, and all of King Oba's past mistakes seemed to fade into distant memory. When they arrived home and entered the royal chamber, mother and daughter teamed up to playfully tease the king about all his losses during the training, while the king watched with a good-natured, lowered head. The following day was significantly better for both the king and his men. Perhaps it was the king's own desire to improve. He won 3 of his sparring matches, and the formation was executed flawlessly. They even managed to set up several defensive systems. For the first time in a long time, the Ujima territory was ready for war. D-Day finally arrived. Queen Zawadi helped her husband don his armor for the battle, while the princess sat on their bed, watching the queen assemble his gear. They spoke briefly, and she assured him of his victory. "Do this for me and our daughter," she said. "I will," the king promised, and kissed her, then kissed the princess on her forehead, and left to join the rest of his men. "Mommy, why do we have to go to war?" the princess asked. "Won't people be hurt?" "We only go to war to protect our peace, my dear," her mother replied calmly. "Now, come with me. Let us watch the war procession." The entire territory came out to watch the king and his men ride out on their horses, cheering them on and wishing them triumph. King Oba met the commander on horseback at the edge of the territory. "Are your men ready?" he asked. "We await your command, sire," he replied. The king nodded. "Give the word." The commander saluted him, then galloped ahead. "Places, everyone. Remember your training today. We fight with everything we have, and we shall win. Ha!" He kicked his horse and thundered away, his men following close behind. As King Oba had foreseen, King Jabari of the Ashanti domain rode up to the gates of the Ujima territory with his army in tow, while King Oba and his forces watched from within the high walls. As they approached, some of the enemy horses stepped on hidden landmines and were blown apart. The soldiers of the Ujima territory quietly rejoiced alongside their king. No one mentioned mines. King Jabari wondered aloud, leading his men forward with caution. But another man triggered a different trap, and arrows rained down upon them, felling more soldiers. The few with shields protected themselves and their king. King Jabari then sent one man to fetch reinforcements. That soldier turned and rode away at full speed while the rest continued their slow advance. Then, King Oba rode out on his own horse to meet him. "Ah, mighty King Oba!" King Jabari called out loudly. "I was told not to expect to see your face today." "Well, here I am," King Oba replied. "And if you turn back and leave now, I will spare your lives and pretend this never happened." "You speak a great game for a coward," King Jabari jeered, and his men laughed. "I am sorry, old friend, but we all know you lack the military might to stop me. This trick with the mines and arrows was clever and caught us off guard, but I am certain they are only meant to frighten us away. However, we are not weak cowards like you. We do not flee at the first sign of danger. How dare you attack my kingdom and invoke our friendship, Jabari? It is nothing personal, Oba. Your territory holds vast resources, they are simply there for the taking. Everyone else has had their share, except me, so I thought, why not have a taste before the others return for seconds? Besides, my loyalty to a failed king like you has brought me nothing but insult and contempt. I warned you, Jabari. Whatever comes next, you have brought upon yourself, King Oba said, drawing his sword. King Jabari drew his own sword and leaned forward on his horse. Let it be so, old friend, he sneered. Charge! King Oba yelled thunderously, raising his sword. Like a massive wave, his men galloped from behind him, rushing past to clash with the Ashanti domain forces. King Jabari was stunned. He had not expected such a substantial military response from the Ujima territory. This was more than substantial. But he would not back down. That would be a catastrophic stain on his reputation and place him on the hit lists of other kingdoms. Attack! He yelled too, and his men galloped past him to meet the incoming charge of the Ujima forces. The two kings joined the fray last, fighting with every ounce of their strength. As the battle raged, more men fell on both sides, and in the midst of the chaos, the two kings met again, still on horseback. "You put up a good fight, brother, but victory belongs to me, Oba." King Jabari jeered. "Scum like you have no right to utter that word, Jabari." King Oba roared in reply. But King Jabari was right. Despite their best efforts, the Ashanti forces were simply greater in number, and they were beginning to overwhelm the defenders. King Oba gave the signal, a sharp, loud whistle, and an archer hidden within the walls released a flaming arrow high into the sky. Then, a thunderous war cry sounded from their flank, and the commander came galloping with the rest of the troops, ambushing the Ashanti forces from behind. The strategy was flawlessly executed, and King Jabari's men were completely surrounded. It was a perfect, two-front battle. "Speak now, Jabari," King Oba yelled, fighting with renewed ferocity. King Jabari was aghast. He never could have foreseen such a legendary military maneuver as the two-faced battle from his old friend, King Oba, and the forces of the Ujima territory. They pressed against him and his men from both sides, overwhelming and slaying them. The look of dread in King Jabari's eyes stood in stark contrast to the look of triumph in King Oba's. King Jabari deeply regretted underestimating the military strength of the Ujima territory, for he knew they were fighting him with their full might, while he had brought less than half of his own military strength. Yet, he knew no one would hear that part of the story when news of his defeat spread. Just when it seemed that all hope was lost for the invaders and the Ujima territory was about to claim victory, a loud, sustained war cry sounded further away than the previous one. The soldier he had sent for reinforcements was returning on his horse at full speed, with a massive army thundering behind him. "Oh no," King Oba muttered, looking up at the approaching forces. King Jabari threw his head back and began to laugh maniacally. "It seems I shall have the final say after all," he sneered. King Oba did not even attempt to reply. He was too busy facing the soldiers who now encircled him and his men. They fought and fought, but the Ashanti forces were simply too numerous. Despite their courage, the defenders were on the losing side, and soon enough, they were completely overpowered. King Oba's horse reared in terror of the encircling enemy soldiers, throwing him off its back before galloping away. The king lay there, defeated and bleeding, watching helplessly as the Ashanti men rode through the gates of the Ujima territory, snatching everything of value in sight. King Jabari rode straight to the palace in search of something he had always coveted, even in the days of his friendship with King Oba. The Oba scepter, a rod of pure gold, encrusted with the largest diamond in all the land. It, along with the royal crown, ring and throne, was a central symbol of authority in the Ujima territory, passed down through generations. The entire territory was plunged into chaos as the invaders rode through, seizing whatever they considered valuable, whether it was women, food, resources, or young daughters. Women wailed while children cried. Most of their husbands, sons, and brothers lay dead outside the gates, and those who survived were severely injured. It was a horrible scene. The queen had grabbed her daughter and was in the throne room with a handful of palace guards when King Jabari arrived with his men, demanding the Oba scepter. "You despicable wretch!" she screamed at King Jabari as he stepped in with his soldiers. "Zawadi, my queen," he smiled, greeting her with a mocking bow as he approached. "You are as radiant as ever. What a shame you chose the wrong prince. But you can still change your mind and come with me right now," he said, moving closer. But the palace guards stood in his path, and Queen Zawadi spat at him from behind them. "I would never ever choose you, even if you were the last man on this earth. I would rather become a hermit. Besides, I made the right choice. My husband is twice the man you are." "You mean the coward lying half dead in front of his own gates?" King Jabari sneered. "Oh, please, suit yourself. I am not here for you, anyway." "Then what do you want?" she asked, concealing the little princess behind her. "Nor for her," he laughed scornfully. "She likely inherited her father's feeble genes." "Whatever you say," Queen Zawadi replied, rolling her eyes. "Hand over the Oba scepter, and I will spare your lives," King Jabari declared. Queen Zawadi scoffed. "Unfortunately, the Oba scepter is meant only for kings." King Jabari chuckled. "A tongue as sharp as yours would make a weapon fit only for kings as well. Yet you stand by a disgraced coward. The only thing I regret about Oba is that he didn't realize what a piece of filth you are sooner, the queen shot back. King Jabari was instantly irritated. He drew his sword. Enough with your sharp remarks, he swore. Hand me the Oba scepter, or else, he threatened, stepping forward. Guards! Queen Zawadi yelled, backing away. They drew their weapons, but they were no match for the bloodthirsty King Jabari and his men. They clashed, and soon tasted his steel, just like the other men of the territory. Now, the queen was left alone with her daughter. King Jabari grabbed her arm. Speak now, he laughed evilly. I am not afraid of you, Queen Zawadi shot back. That is of no concern to me, King Jabari jeered. Where is the Oba scepter? He asked once more. No matter what you do to me, I will never tell you, she spat in his face. He looked at her intently and shrugged, then shoved her into the arms of his men and snatched her daughter. Mommy! The little princess cried out. The Oba scepter is in the royal chamber, the queen yelled instinctively. Get your hands off my daughter. She struggled against the men, but they were too strong. I do like how chatty she makes you, King Jabari sneered. Perhaps I should take her too, he said softly, a childlike, mischievous glint in his eyes. Please, the queen begged, tears streaming down her face as she struggled against her captors. Please don't do this to me, Jabari. You know how long it took me to have her. 8 long years, in case you have forgotten. Please, I will give you anything else. Just let her go. First, lead me to the Oba scepter, he said, laughing at how easily the queen had broken. The queen struggled against the men, and King Jabari signaled them to release her, which they did. He knew that as long as he held the princess captive, Queen Zawadi would do anything he demanded. Follow me, the queen said, and led him upstairs to the royal chamber. King Jabari's eyes scanned the room as he followed Queen Zawadi. She walked straight to a large cabinet and opened it, then retrieved the Oba scepter. Here, she said, offering it to him. King Jabari immediately pushed her daughter into her arms and took the Oba scepter from her. He held it in his hands as if it were the greatest treasure of his life and began to laugh maniacally, while Queen Zawadi clutched her daughter to herself. Are you all right? Did he hurt you? She asked. The girl shook her head, crying. Is Daddy dead? She asked. Queen Zawadi hesitated, and King Jabari intervened. Come with me, and I will show you where your father is lying, he said, reaching for the girl. Haven't you gotten what you came for? Leave. Queen Zawadi fired at him, pulling her daughter behind her. She would die before they took her daughter again, she swore internally. King Jabari laughed at her desperation and turned to his men. We are done here, he said. Let us be on our way. He walked to the door. The moment they stepped out, the queen closed the doors and barred them. Then, she embraced her daughter and collapsed into tears. Mother and daughter wept together, pouring out their sorrow. King Jabari stepped out of the palace, armed with the Oba scepter. He mounted his horse alongside his men and joined the others who had raided the territory, their caravans now filled with resources, foodstuffs, and even women. The people of the Ujima territory watched weakly as King Jabari and his men rode through the streets, King Jabari raising the Oba scepter high for all to see. When he reached the territory gates, he found King Oba sitting, bloody and injured, against one of them, but still alive. Oba, boy. Queen Zawadi sends her regards, he said, waving the Oba scepter in his old friend's face. King Oba's eyes widened at the sight of the Oba scepter in King Jabari's hand. He shook his head frantically, struggling to speak, while King Jabari laughed at him. Should I end his misery? One of King Jabari's men asked him. Where is the fun in that? King Jabari asked the man. He has to look around and realize what a failure he turned out to be. Let that sink in and kill him slowly. King Oba struggled to stand and grabbed at the Oba scepter, trying to pull it from King Jabari's grasp, but King Jabari pulled out his sword and struck King Oba's head with the hilt, knocking him unconscious. As he fell to the ground, King Oba could faintly hear the mocking laughter of King Jabari and his men. Then, He and his forces galloped away. When King Oba woke up again, he was being carried into the territory on a makeshift stretcher. His head throbbed terribly, but at least he had feeling there. The rest of his body was numb. He and the remaining, badly injured survivors were being taken to the territory's health center. He could hear the wails of his people, and could see smoke rising from some buildings. Tears fell from his own eyes as King Jabari's words echoed in his mind. He has to look around and realize what a failure he turned out to be. Let that sink in and kill him slowly. He cried bitterly. Then, those carrying him realized he was still alive. Send word to the queen. One of them told someone he couldn't see. Tell her that the king is alive. But deep within, King Oba wished he was anything but. When they set him down at the health center, the women immediately tended to him first, despite his efforts to tell them to focus on others. Soon afterward, his wife, Queen Zawadi, and their daughter, Princess Subaira, arrived at the health center, their eyes red and puffy from weeping. When they saw King Oba, they rushed to his side, their sorrow overwhelming them again, and they cried bitterly over him. King Oba struggled to find the courage to even look them in the eyes, and silent tears slipped from the corners of his own. I was so scared, Daddy, Princess Subaira admitted. I thought you had died. I didn't, my love, he replied, kissing her hand. He turned to look at her mother. Why did you give the Oba scepter to Jabari? He asked angrily. Calm down, my love. You are in no state to stress over such things. But if you must know, he was going to kill your daughter. I didn't even know when I told him where it was. King Oba was consumed with rage. Since its inception, the Oba scepter had never left the four walls of the territory, until now. I am going to kill you, Jabari, he swore, shutting his eyes tightly to try and stem the tears. I am here, my love, Queen Zawadi replied, kissing him. Let it all out. Then, his body was racked with sobs as he surrendered to his despair. It took some time, but the health center eventually discharged the king and the few remaining men who had survived the war. Unfortunately, the commander was not one of them. While the king had been convalescing, the queen had been overseeing the territory's affairs, and she was not enjoying it. Once again, the people were clamoring for King Oba to surrender the throne. They all claimed that his time as king had only brought misfortune and bad luck upon them. After his discharge, while on his way back to the palace, accompanied by the queen and princess, along with a handful of maidens and guards, the people returned to their jeers, hurling insults at King Oba's face. At one point, the young princess could tolerate it no longer, and she shouted back at the accusers, "Did you not see him fight alongside his men? Is he not just being discharged from the health center? Why are all of you so heartless?" The princess asked loudly, startling the crowd. "It is all right, my daughter, that is enough," the queen advised her, pulling her close. Soon enough, they reached the palace, and the queen left her composure at the door. "How can people be so cruel and so quick to forget the good that was done?" she asked, collapsing onto the bed. King Oba silently walked to the cabinet and touched it, looking at the empty space where the Oba scepter had rested. Then, he sighed and began to undress, but he winced in pain, and his wife came to assist him. "You have been too quiet," she noted. "What is on your mind?" she asked, concerned. He sighed. "Perhaps they are right. I mean, look at this territory. Ever since my father passed the throne to me, it has been one disaster after another." "Do not even say that as a joke," his wife warned. "But isn't it true?" King Oba asked. "What they are saying will only be true if you do not find a way out of this situation," she corrected him, and then left the chamber. King Oba exhaled deeply. She was right. She was always right. He needed to fix things, and quickly. When night fell and the palace was quiet, King Oba had another vision. This time, he saw his own people plotting to assassinate his entire family and end his bloodline. He woke up with a gasp and sat up, rubbing his eyes, careful not to wake his wife. He had to act immediately, and there was only one option left. He went and gave his daughter one final kiss on the forehead. "I am sorry," he whispered and wiped a tear as he left. The princess opened her eyes after he was gone and took a deep breath. A single tear escaped her eye, and she closed them again. Then, King Oba went outside, deep into the palace gardens, and summoned Mchoi the Dreadful. "Mchoi! Mchoi! Mchoi!" he shouted in the palace gardens with a secretive voice. And instantly, the demon appeared before him and spoke. "You called, my king?" The demon replied as he materialized from the shadows. "I need your army," King Oba admitted. "You know my price," Mchoi replied, rubbing his hands together with a devilish smile. "What if I offer you half, or even more, of everything I will ever possess?" "I have no need for any of that. I only require a one-time payment of your daughter's soul, and the most formidable army one can imagine will be yours," Choi replied smoothly. King Oba sighed, resignedly. "Where do I sign?" he asked. The demon snapped his fingers, and suddenly a scroll and a quill were set on a table before him. "Here." The demon pointed, and the king obeyed. Suddenly, soldiers began materializing all over the territory. "As per your request." They appear human, but in battle, they are anything but. Even palace guards materialized, though most were asleep and did not see them. "And my daughter?" the king asked. "A worthy sacrifice," the demon replied, and then he was gone. The king rushed back to the palace and was greeted by some of the new guards. He gave them a curt nod, hurrying up to the royal chamber. He was relieved to find his daughter in her bed and still breathing. But he didn't check anything else about her before slipping back into bed beside his wife, a grim smile on his face. The next day, he was going to strike the Ashanti domain with everything he had. They would not see what was coming for them, he thought to himself. He planned to completely destroy their domain. However, that morning, he woke up to a new worry. "Oba!" Queen Zawadi was shouting, shaking him vigorously. "Yes?" he asked, confused and sleepy. "What did you do to my daughter, Oba?" the queen repeated desperately. "I don't understand," King Oba replied, and the queen landed a sharp, stinging slap across his left cheek. "Don't you dare try to play ignorant with me." All over the territory, soldiers have suddenly appeared and are helping to rebuild the territory on your orders. "And my daughter, Oba. My daughter's skin is white as snow. There's a symbol on her forehead, and she will not wake up. So tell me now, what did you do to my daughter?" "I sold her soul to Mchoi," he confessed, defeated. "Ah!" Queen Zawadi exclaimed, clutching her head. "No. You are lying, Oba!" she cried, gripping the lapels of his robe. "Wait, my love, you are choking me. Let me explain. Don't you dare call me your love ever again. Why wouldn't I choke you? Tell me you are lying, Oba," she pressed. It took all of his strength to get up with her clinging to him like that, and she resorted to pounding her fists against his chest, weeping. "How could you, Oba? You know how I suffered. How could you?" she sobbed. "I had no choice, my love," King Oba responded stoically. She slapped him again, cutting him off. "Yes, you had another choice. My daughter didn't have to become a sacrifice for you. How dare you say you love me, Oba?" she asked, beating against his chest. "Put yourself in my position, my Zawadi," he pleaded. "If I did," she replied, "I would remember promising my wife that I would rather die than lose her and her daughter, because you, Oba, have forgotten that promise." She was wailing uncontrollably now. "Just leave me alone," she yelled, pulling away from him. "Everyone warned me, but I refused to listen, and of all the princes, I chose you. Oh, how I wish now that I had listened to them. How I wish that I never met you, Oba," she declared, moving to pack her things. "Where are you going?" he asked. "Far away from you, and I am taking my daughter with me, and I will cure her of this curse you have laid upon her. Do not you dare come looking for us, because then you will see the side of me I only show to your enemies. Goodbye," Queen Zawadi said, rushing out of his presence. But just then, a knock came at the door. It was one of the new soldiers, bearing good news. "Sire, we are ready to launch the attack on the Ashanti domain. All we await now is your presence at the forefront of the army," he announced. King Oba looked from the soldier to his wife. "Go!" she yelled at him. "It won't be the first time you put everyone else first." And so, with a determined face and a renewed, dark vigor, King Oba hurried down the palace steps with his soldiers and mounted his horse. Before he commanded them to charge, he yelled, great soldiers of the day, and great soldiers of the night." And the soldiers all responded in a resounding manner. "Ha!" King Oba then continued speaking, "Today, we reclaim what was stolen from us, our glory, our honor. Not long ago, the men of the Ashanti domain robbed us of these things and spat in our faces by stealing our beloved Oba scepter. Those animals. Today is the day we make them pay." And the soldiers all responded immediately, "Ha!" King Oba then continued, "Today, we repay them with dust and blood." He then asked in a loud tone, "What do we always say?" And the non-demon soldiers responded, "The sword of the Ujamaa always repays blood with blood." "Say it again, louder," King Oba demanded. "The sword of the Ujamaa always repays blood with blood," they screamed even louder. King Oba then turned to the demon soldiers and yelled, "Soldiers of the night!" And he was answered with a loud, resounding, demonic groan, like the roar of a lion mixed with an elephant. He admonished them, "You are not of Ujamaa, but today you fight and die for Ujamaa. Your only target and goal is to bring me King Jabari's head. Burn their villages and abuse their women. But none of it will matter if I do not see King Jabari's head on a spike." The demon soldiers then groaned in an even louder voice, agreeing with King Oba. King Oba then charged them, "You were bought at a high price. Make sure the debt is completed and paid in blood. Men, charge." And then all the soldiers on their horses yelled in a resounding tone as they charged outside the territory's gate and headed straight for the Ashanti domain to attack. Meanwhile, Queen Zawadi was also embarking on a journey of her own. Seeing that King Oba had left, she immediately placed Juma, the king's hand and protector of the realm's gates, as interim king as she departed the palace on a mission to save her daughter's soul. She took 3 of her most trusted palace guards and 2 of her most beloved royal maidens as escort as she embarked on a perilous journey to Estes. There lived her stepmother, Nima of Akili, a person who, according to legends, had journeyed to the realm of demons, and someone Queen Zawadi believed could help save her daughter's soul. Thank you for following this tale. If this story captivated you and you long for a continuation, please share this video with everyone you know and drop your thoughts and the dark lessons you've learned in the comments section below. If this video racks up 1,000 comments, I promise to deliver a thrilling part 2. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and activate your notifications bell so you are the first to be alerted when the next chapter arrives. Have a truly magnificent day.